All right, so I ain't got time to look cute, but I might as well say this now. I'm looking out at what's going on. Uh, Definitely rest in peace, and condolences to the family of George Floyd and all that's going on. And I'm looking out at the looting and the rioting and all the stuff that's going on across the country. And I'm asking myself, where are the leaders? Where are the civil rights leaders? Where are all the people that could speak up on the Sunday morning talk shows? You know, we're the folks who have voices, who have a platform, who know how to do something. People are outraged. There's rioting, there's looting, there's all this type of stuff that's going on. But I don't see enough unity. I don't see enough people saying, hey, this is not just a black issue. I could sit here and pretend and make this a black issue and say this is just a black thing. But I remember my one and only time that I actually had an issue with a police officer and I was, unfairly arrested or whatnot. Um, it was a Puerto Rican person. Yeah, you know how it goes, Mighty R. There's so many people out there with voices. There's so many people out there with platforms, and I'm trying to figure out where the civil rights leaders, where are the people that have platforms and have speeches and running for office. Where are all these folks out there that want your vote in November? Where are they? You know, it's a situation where I wonder. I mean, and look at the media. I hate to say it with the media. The media is painting these divisions where you have, black versus white, the people versus the cops. If you notice, look at any media coverage. In the middle of it, there's the reporter or the people waiting to see what happens, and what sells is the division. When there's no division and there's unity, they don't want to do anything. So it's kind of crazy. What's going on, Cheryl? Appreciate you for coming through. I'm just wondering where the leadership at this time. I mean, it's kind of crazy how things are being shown. We're seeing all this looting, we're seeing all this robbing, destruction of property, we're seeing all these things happen. But I don't see a whole bunch of people with real solutions. I see people maybe they're looking for leadership from, President Trump, whatever that's about. People are hiding in the corner or they're painting the whole black and white situation. And it's kind of crazy because the reality is it's not just black people that have issues with the cops. Anybody that's poor, that comes from low income neighborhoods, anybody that comes from a background where you can be judged, where you have a situation where you're from stark poverty. This is not just a black issue. And I would like to say, that hey, it hurts, being a black person and seeing another black person die and dying at the hand of a police officer and being unfairly, unjustly, taken out. It's not fun. It's not fun to watch. It's not cool. It's not cool to see what happened in Georgia, with the black man that was killed out in Georgia, and then you go to Kentucky, and then you have Minnesota. But I think what's unfair is that there are a lot of people who are not black who have issues with the police, and I was reminded of that today. I was reminded that there are people who come from poor backgrounds, people even from my city, who've had to deal with this whole thing. I mean, it's not like just black people have to deal with the police. We're forgetting about Spanish folks. We're forgetting about Asians. We're forgetting about Native Americans. We're forgetting about poor white folks. People that come from rural areas, people that come from ghetto areas. People that come from trailer parks. It's assumed and it's this broad stroke painted that hey, it's just black people all over the world, black people all over the country. You know, um, it's a situation where it's not that way. It's more granular than that. It's more going on, and people may not want to hear this. It may not be the most popular thing to say that, hey, you know what, from a black person saying, hey, it's not only black people that have issues or dealings with the police. It's not like all of a sudden there's just black people being killed by the police. I saw evil in the eyes of a murderer, and I'm still angry about it. Well, here you go, and I think that needs to be highlighted as well. They're not black people just angry. It's not only black people that are angry about this death. There are people who are Caucasian. There are people who are Hispanic. There are people from all races who are mad about the death of George Floyd. And I encourage you people to speak up. I encourage not to be, drawn in by the media. Don't be drawn into the narrative that, it's just a black thing. And also to you be respectful about it. But, if you have issues in your town, in your neighborhood, if where you come from, if you had issues with the police, then speak up. Let your voices be heard. Don't let people paint the picture. And I think that's one of the things that's happening with the media and whatnot is that a narrative is being painted, which is going to hurt us in the long run. Nothing's going to change if this becomes a strictly black and white issue. If this becomes a black and white issue, then it's going to fade. It's going to go away. It's going to be something where, okay, these folks versus these folks, and this is it. Once a division is there, and they can manipulate and exploit that, then that's what's going to happen. Yeah, not mighty one. This is one mighty. This is something where a lot of people are tired of it. But if we're tired of it, we have to be tired of it together. We have to be tired of it as a country. We have to be tired of it as a human race. We have to be tired of it as white, black, Hispanic, Asian, indigenous folks. We have to be tired of it together. It can't be, okay, this is happening to them over there, or this is a situation that's only affecting those people because they look like this. There are people who don't look like me that experience things with the police. There are people that go through stuff. There are people that have, choices to make when they're dealing with the cops. We're one people exactly. We're the human race. And people don't realize that it is a situation. If you come from a poor neighborhood, definitely, I tell people out there, if you live in a poor neighborhood and you do some things and you have a criminal record, then you may have some encounters with the police that you may not make it out of. This is not just something that's exclusively to somebody who is black. It's just that so happens that there's a pattern of it happening to black folks. And could there be racism? Is there racism involved? Of course, there's racism involved. But to isolate it and say it's just about black people, it's not fair to those people out there who have been, unfairly groped, or people that have been killed, or people that have had things happen to them, or, illegal search and sieges, of merchandise or property, people that have been set up for drug arrests that didn't happen. So, it's kind of crazy like that. Yeah, it makes me sad too, Victory Leo. But I think what happens is not enough times we don't look at the bigger picture. It's a bigger arc, because many times when these things are happening, like with the Eric Garner case, people don't like to talk about with the Eric Garner case, when Officer Pantaleo, did the legal chokehold and got Eric Garner down to the floor. There was a black police officer who was a sergeant on the scene. Nobody likes to talk about that. So, it happens, but they kind of swept that under the rug. So systemically, it's a bigger issue than what people may realize. It's systemic racism, unfortunately, going on for many years. It's heartbreaking. I'm mad that the leaders of the city and the state let it out of control, and most of them are minorities. So what's the result of the lack of leadership? Yeah, I agree with you, Dakota. I mean, I definitely say there's a lack of leadership. Cheryl, there's systemic racism, but it's not also just systemic racism, because if the laws were set up properly, then this wouldn't be an issue. It becomes a political thing because it's not just the race; it's also the poverty. People from poor neighborhoods are more likely to be arrested and put in jail and killed than people in affluent neighborhoods. Let me see. I ain't got crazy yet. Still still praying for the best. Yeah, no, you ain't gotta get crazy. Nobody has to get crazy. I mean, people could be mad, they could be frustrated, they could be upset. You should be upset. You should be mad as hell. You should be feeling a lot of different ways about it. But it's not a situation where people have to be divided over the situation, because that's what some folks want. There's a lot of money to be made off of division. There's a lot of money to be made off of people feeling like, you know what, that's their problem over there, but that's not us. Because there's a lot of interracial relationships. Ask yourself this question: what if you're in a relationship with somebody who's black or who's white, and they're going through something with the police? At that point, it doesn't matter who's white, who's black. That's your loved one. What if that's a family member? What if that's a friend? What if that's a coworker? Now it takes on a different thing. What if there's a personal connection there? It doesn't have to become a situation where that's you over there. We start to humanize each other and see each other in the light to say, hey, you know what? That's not right, because you shouldn't treat another human being that way. It's not right because it happened to a black person, me being a black person, definitely. Definitely you stand up for a person, period. And I think we lose sight of that because it does become about color. It does become about division. Maybe people don't want to hear that. It's not the most popular thing to hear, but like I said, where are our leaders? You know, speak out about it. I think the governor of Minnesota is starting to speak up now. Somebody's finally saying something. But you know, all I'm saying is that we need more inclusion. We need more resolutions. We need more problem solving. We need more unity as opposed to division, as opposed to people not really sticking together, and uniting together, because these things don't change if we just isolate these incidents, and say, okay, it's not something that, affects me because I'm not a part of that particular community. And it's sad because a lot of things don't get done because people forget about the civil rights movement and why it was so impactful. People forget about why Martin Luther King and that whole situation rose to another level, because when he started to march and rally for poor people and people of all races, of all backgrounds, all walks of life, that's when it became something that was bigger than just one particular race. And there's going to be divisions with that because some people just want to make it a black issue. And folks are tired and folks are frustrated, but folks are frustrated of all types. What about the immigrants? What about the Asians? Think about that. What about Hispanic people that are in this country, that had to deal with discrimination on a regular basis? People don't talk about that. Where the protests for the immigrants that get killed? We should really be out there making this a bigger issue than what it is. And definitely, anybody that gets killed is a problem. I had a deputy come to my house and he said he was looking for a man with a felony warrant and scared my autistic son. And then I ran down and called to contain him. The supervisor got written up. Yeah, but that's what you're supposed to do. If they do something like that, then you're supposed to say something about it. Don't let it just stand. But these are stories that we should share with each other. I think one of the issues that we have when we have these things going on, as far as like issues that are happening, we don't share our stories. People don't tell, hey, you know what? I had issues with a cop too. Or maybe I had issues with a cop too. Because somebody had to come to me today and tell me, say, look, Mel, look, you're not the only one that went through some things or experienced some stuff. I went through a situation with a cop. Like I reiterated earlier, I reiterated now. My only time when I was arrested and my main harassment with a police officer, I was arrested by somebody who was Puerto Rican. So it's not even a white or black thing sometimes. Sometimes it's about injustice. It's about politics. It's socioeconomic. People see the zip code that you come from. People see the economic status that you're in. And then also eventually, definitely how you look. What's going on, Amy? Appreciate you for coming through. Thank you. But like I said, I think there needs to be more leadership. There needs to be more civil rights leaders or people with voices that know how to speak up. So it's kind of crazy that they're not speaking up as much. I don't know what people are waiting for. Maybe they're waiting for the Sunday morning talk shows. Maybe they're waiting for the right moment or the right press conference. I can't tell you what it is. Let me see what somebody else is saying. I seen that comment. I can't believe the Mexican-American police chief in Minneapolis didn't weed out the bad police. Well, sometimes it's hard. Sometimes there's the politics of it. Dakota, people don't realize. Sometimes people stay silent and try to deal with it behind the scenes because they're trying to keep their jobs. Or maybe this is the first time you're promoted, or you're trying to, pay off a mortgage. There's different things that people do. Sometimes people stay silent and these things just happen. It's a situation where we need more courageous people out there. We need more leaders to speak up. We need more people to have a voice, who have a voice to speak up and say something relevant, because there's just division. People make it about a race issue. And, it gets lost because injustice happens to everybody. I'm not going to sit there and start saying this life matters and that life matters and what situation matters and doesn't matter. I'm not trying to create platitudes. I'm not trying to speak in soft figurative language. I'm trying to say that black people get killed and face issues with the police, just like white people do, just like Mexicans do, just like Asians do, just like any other ethnicity that I may not even be thinking about does. This is not just an isolated incident to one community. And it's a shame that the leaders in our country, the leaders in certain communities don't speak up. Where are the black leaders? Where are the people on the other side? I mean, the governor is speaking up now, at 1:37 a.m., Central Time. But, like I said, so much damage has already been done. And the breaking news from the Minnesota governor is go home. What kind of encouraging words are those? So after all the violence and the destruction, instead of bringing unity, you're going to talk down to people. You're going to tell people what they should or shouldn't do. And it's kind of crazy. People need healing. People need reassurance. Yeah, sure. You're watching that right now. I mean, how are you going to tell people after this, go home? A man was killed and slain in the streets, and you're going to say, go home, stop destroying the property, unless we're going to do this, or, threats don't help anything. This is not a time to threaten people. This is not a time to tell people, especially in the middle of a global pandemic, that you're going to face more consequences and things are going to become dire. What are you going to do? Arrest people in the middle of this COVID-19 outbreak and risk infecting more people? And that's a whole other thing we have to deal with right there. More people getting sick and the numbers raising and the numbers spiking in the Midwest. They said millions of people would die. Who knows? Maybe we're on track to that. There's a whole bunch of recklessness. There's a whole bunch of things that people are not considering, or maybe they are considering it and they stepping back. We have celebrities, we have people with voices, we have people with money, with power, with platforms that need to be speaking up. Where the Michael Jordans of the world, the Magic Johnsons of the world? I mean, where the Al Sharptons at? Where are the people out there that have voices? Where are the people that have platforms? Obama even spoke up. Obama came out of somewhere and said, he stands with the people, and these things are not right. So it's kind of crazy because, when you don't say anything and you're just silent and you know what you know and you know how to speak in a way that's going to affect people, affect change, then you're just doing a disservice because, like I said, people out there getting hurt. They're innocent people who are going to get hurt out there. There are people who don't understand what's going on who are going to get hurt. So it's like I don't know. Like I said, and then we celebrate and worship these celebrities, or we celebrate and we worship these politicians, or we vote for these people, we give them our tax dollars. Hold people accountable. Find out what's going on. Like I said, this may not be the most popular thing. I may not have it the most articulate way, but I just question you, to question your leaders. Where are they? Where's the leadership? Where's the unity? Where's the fact that we all as human beings have, a propensity for justice? We want to, have the right thing done by us, regardless of the fact. Thank you, Shara. I do appreciate that. This is just me speaking out in my little way. The best way that I can. I don't know about anybody else. I encourage you to use your platform to speak up the best way that you can. Because I think if the laws were right and in place, we wouldn't have had this happen. Let's be realistic. The police officers should be mad. Way things are going, I see a Great Depression coming. No. I won't say it's a Great Depression. What's coming is an opportunity, is a chance, is a testing of character to find out who's who and what's what. You have people that are going to step up in times of great tribulation and times of turmoil, and you have those people that's going to fold to the back. My thing is, I feel bad for those people, or not even feel bad. It's going to be a sad day for those people that want to come out now after the fact and speak up. While right now chaos is happening in Minnesota, chaos is happening out in San Francisco and Sacramento and Atlanta. Studios are being destroyed. Out here in Brooklyn, where I live, on the other side of town, cop cars are being burned. They're outside of the sports arena, the Barclays Center. All these different things are going on. Fires, I'm seeing a fire be set right here on CNN. People are doing stuff. There's looting. There's all these different things going on. LA too. There's all these things happening. Where's the guidance? Where's the leadership? Where are the people speaking out? Are people afraid? Do you not know what to say? Is you afraid to speak to the youth? Or are you afraid to tell people that you're destroying your country, you're destroying your community? And then on top of that, there's a global pandemic. People were walking around like coronavirus never hit. Somebody said on Facebook, coronavirus was canceled, due to the fact that people wanted to riot. And that's sad, it's unfortunate. Portland has fires set too. This is a situation where we as people have to stick together. And if we don't see that this is a commonality in this, that this is humanity, that folks are not just in it by themselves. But unfortunately, like I said, people want to make this about, division. And if you look at the media is going to play up the division, because if you look at it, pay attention. Black people are not the only ones looting and destroying stuff, but when you go to the cameras, you cut and see the black people. There's white folks out there too. They're angry, they're mad, they're doing things just as well. But you want to paint that narrative because that focuses on that, and that's going to keep people watching. As long as the division, there, people are going to keep watching. When you start having the unity, I guarantee you, there's marches, there's peaceful protests. That's not news. Nobody wants to hear about that. The virus hasn't gone anywhere. We still have to face that. So definitely. So I just say, don't fall into the trap with the media. Don't fall into the trap with the politics, because there's a lot of people that could be speaking up. There's a lot of people that could bring healing, be it in the black community, be it, Caucasian, be it Asian. There's a lot of people that can come together and form a coalition, and that can actually do something and affect change and get this taken care of. When you have cops that come out and say, you know what, we're not going into the communities, and we're not going to arrest, unarmed black people, or we're not going to arrest young kids or go against the community. I mean, the president was on Twitter saying that, hey, he's going to send the National Guard in there and possibly shoot down, black folks or citizens of the country. And that's not something that, you want to see as an American citizen. That's not something you want to have to fathom or even think about. But, that's what's being said by our president. And like I said, we're really suffering from a true lack of leadership right now. Because like I said, I'm disappointed because there's a lot of people with platforms. There's a lot of people who have money. There's a lot of people who have property. There's a lot of people who have influence. And that's when I hate the whole term online influencer, because you start looking at it, you're saying, okay, so when I want to sell you a product, it's okay to be an online influencer. But when it's time to bring unity, when it's time to bring leadership, when it's time to try to bring some healing, people can't do that. And then when you have certain folks out there trying to say it, you try to hope that it's not skewed, because we need everybody to solve this problem. It's not just the black community. This is not just a problem for the black community to solve alone. Even though I face a lot of this stuff as a black man going out in the street, dealing with the police, dealing with law enforcement, dealing with the courtrooms and stuff like that, this is something where when you have other people on your side as a coalition from different races, different backgrounds, different education levels and socioeconomic situations, you have more insight, more input. People take you more seriously when you step in, in the name of peace and solidarity with other folks from different races, from different backgrounds. It becomes a bigger issue, it becomes a human issue. When we make it about race, sometimes the humanity can be taken away because people forget that this is something that everybody can face. Anybody can be in a situation where you have a mistaken identity, your ID runs the wrong way, or somebody stole your identity and then they feel like you're a criminal. Anybody with a criminal record that has been arrested before, they understand what I'm talking about. Any encounter that you may or may not have with the cops is predicated on what your criminal history is. I see some people starting to come out and speak up now, but we need people to speak in a more effective and forceful way. It's time for the leaders to come out. It's time for the people with voices to step up and come out and do what it is that needs to be done. It's time for people who are white, who are black, who are Asian, who are Hispanic, to come out and say, hey, look, this is an issue that affects us all. Because if you have a black person, an unarmed black person dying, one day it could be an unarmed black person, the next day it could be an unarmed, poor white person. The day after that, it could be unarmed, a Mexican or Dominican or Puerto Rican person. You never know. Like, that reminded me of this story. It's called Nine Shots. It was in the New York Times Magazine. I forget the year it was. And they were talking about a young immigrant kid that was actually trying to go over the wall. He was trying to get over the border from Mexico into Arizona. And he was shot 9 times. And it was kind of swept away under the rug. He was shot 9 times. He's doing something illegal, but he shouldn't have been shot 9 times because he was trying to get over the wall. But it happened. And we don't even talk about how immigrants are treated. So the same energy that we put for black people, unarmed black people being killed and things happening to them, we need to put the same energy into immigrants, because they face some of the same struggles that we face. And then Asian people definitely face discrimination with the whole COVID-19, and then lack of support from the community, lack of support from law enforcement, and then with law enforcement, I was having a conversation with my mother about this, and she was saying that anybody in law enforcement should be mad at that police officer that killed George Floyd, with the knee on his neck, because now you make your jobs harder. Yeah, indigenous peoples too, So I say to the cops out there, that makes your jobs harder. Everybody. It makes it hard for everybody, because look at this. The situation happened in Minnesota, right? George Floyd was killed. Now you have riots in 6 different states. You have in Atlanta, Baltimore, Minnesota, California, New York, Michigan, other places that I probably can't think of now. So this thing is spread like a wildfire. What's going on, Radley? I think it's about an officer being accountable for his behavior and having suitable consequences for it. I think that would go some way to help. Yes, and I'm glad you brought up that point. At the core of this thing is this, if we're going to talk about it real. The reason this happened, and nobody wants to talk about it, is because the man was a police officer and they let it happen. The man was a police officer. He was not held accountable by his peers, and they let it happen. Had his peers held him accountable, which we get into the politics of the job and what's going on, then that goes into something else. And it wasn't like it was just, white cops there. There are people of different races that were involved, but the media doesn't put out all the details. People don't realize and say, hey, you know what? How do other police officers feel about this thing? What's really going on? Is this just an isolated incident? Is this just about, a total discrimination or a lack of transparency where somebody's not seeing something? I don't want the kids to be misled. I don't want the youngins to be misled. I don't want other people in the world to be misled that this is just a black thing. This happens in many other different neighborhoods. This happens in Asian neighborhoods. This can happen in Hispanic neighborhoods dealing with ICE. I mean, we don't even want to talk about what ICE does to, immigration services. They can, they can hurt you and kill you up, and something happened to you, and it's not even reported. At least this thing with George Floyd gets reported. I can't talk about the countless immigrants that have died and been killed by police officers or immigration services chasing them down and things happening, and nobody talks about it because they're not citizens or they're not seen as human beings. So this is not something that just happens because you're black, even though that's a factor and that plays a role. It is something that is so systemic, it's so broad based, it's so wide that you could actually have something. It's something that affects the whole country. It's something that affects generations. It's something that puts a stigmatism, with the police. Their song NWA did, F the police. When they said F the police, they didn't just say, hey, F the police because of what was happening with black folks. These are things that happen with black and brown folks, Asian folks, alike. And I'm not trying to attack the police. I'm not saying every police officer out there is wrong. Every police officer out there is a crook, is a criminal, and all these other things. But there's a systemic problem with how we deal with what we deal with. What's going on, Crimson Fantasy? Thank you for coming through. I just think it's a problem with people being afraid to speak up. Don't be afraid to say your piece. Don't be afraid to say what you need to say. And there's a lot of people that's sitting around waiting, for things to happen and waiting for another time, waiting for this to blow over, waiting for the politicians just to deal with it. Yeah, the politicians are supposed to deal with it, but there's so much more. I keep trolling 45, I think, hell, but I'm not getting into that with 45. 45 is another thing. But let me see what Random Life is saying. The incident took things back to the Rodney Key for me. This is so damaging. Well, it's damaging, Random Life, but here's the thing about it. It's not irreversible. We're not in a situation, we're not in a moment in time where this is something that's too crazy. Because we've had times in here, like I was reminded by the old timers, where there was times when all 40 states were rioting at one time, in America. Some people say almost all 50 states stuff was going on, back in the civil rights days. So we're not to that level yet. We're in a couple of states, things are a little bit rough. People are speaking up, but it's a time. It's a time for people to come together. It's a time to understand that people need to really look at this as a bigger, wider issue, a broader issue. If anything, people don't understand that are looting, that are out there doing this. Now you put yourself in a situation of chaos, a state of things can't be controlled, and you get yourself into martial law, a lockdown, of epic proportions that you can't come out of. And I would hate for people to be put into those situations, but it happens. And unfortunately, our leaders don't step up. Unfortunately, we have people who get quiet at times and they shrink in moments of great adversity. And it shouldn't be that way, but it makes you wonder when you start looking around and it's hard to find voices. It's hard to find people who really care or who really want to speak up. That's why, I look at people and I say, if you're an influencer, if you have a voice, if you have something positive to say, something united, something that can bring people together in this time, don't wait, don't hesitate. If politics is not your thing and this is not what you normally do, but you do have a voice that unites people and that's healing, and you can do anything in any way that's positive, I encourage you to do it. Because we as people, regardless if you're from this country or if you're not from this country, regardless if you can relate to this issue or you can't relate to this issue, unity and inclusion and humanity is needed right now more than ever. Because it's about the human experience. It's about understanding, what if it was somebody you loved and you cared about that was in that particular situation? Honestly, Mel, that's what bothers me most. The people that have these power to help. Yes, it bothers me as well too, Cheryl, when you have people with the power to help. There's a lot of people out there with the power to help. There's a lot of people out there with a voice. There's a lot of people who don't want to get political, but at the same time, they have no problem asking you to buy their product. they have no problem, rallying for votes or whatever the case may be. So, you know what, hold them accountable, because there's a lot of people with voices that speak up at wrong times and say things that are misquoted or misspeak on this one and that one. And it doesn't have to be a political thing to try to bring people together. It's true. I feel so bad for the kids seeing and going through all this. Yes, the kids shouldn't have to see this, but what the kids should also see too is that what the kids should also see is that there are people that care. The kids should also see that there are people who want to bring healing. I'm a black man and I've gone through stuff, and I've been stopped and I've been frisked, and I've gone through, different discriminations. But I'm here to say that I know people of different races, in my neighborhood and other neighborhoods and other backgrounds and other ages and socioeconomic situations, who have had dealings with the police as well, who have been in situations where they were in fear for their life as well. So, like I said, it is something that you don't want to just say, hey, this is an isolated incident for this community. I don't want to paint the picture like this is just a black thing, this is a black and white thing, or just, black people versus the police. Sometimes that gets portrayed in the media because guess what? It's going to keep people paying attention. Everybody loves a good fight. A lot of people love a good fight. Everybody likes to see division. People will pay attention. If you're saying it's the police versus the people are going to pay attention. If you're saying it's black versus white, or the black versus the police, or the white versus this one, or the Browns versus that, and the president versus this one, then people will pay attention to that. But what about the unity? What about the coming together? Okay, fine. If you want to make it a black issue and you're going to make it a black issue, how do we heal the situation? How do we come together? How do we make it something worthwhile? How do we make it a situation where it's not just about news coverage? How do we make it a situation where it's not just about rioting and looting? Because what you see out there right now, there's a lot of people looting. There's a lot of destruction. There's things being played on a loop. There's violence begetting violence. I'm seeing more things about fire. I'm seeing more things about destruction of property. I'm seeing black people out there. I'm seeing, the video being played over and over, about, George Floyd. I'm seeing people mad. I'm seeing people angry. But where are the solutions? Where are the leaders? Where are the people stepping up? Where are the people that give a damn? Where are the people out there that have something to say, that can help? I don't want to hear from you after the fact. I don't want to hear from people with voices, with resources, with a platform after the fact. I don't want to hear about you when it's time for you to release a new sneaker. I don't want to hear about you when it's time to release a new documentary. I don't want to hear from you when there's a movie coming out, or, it's a cause that you care about. We need solutions. We need people to step up. We have people out there. It's not like there's people that are not here on this planet. It shouldn't be a situation where we're searching, we're grasping for straws. There's way too many people that are quiet. I'll give you for instance. When the NFL draft came out here in America, you had all these celebrities and all these people from all walks of life who could sit up there and talk about these NFL players being drafted. Same thing with the NBA draft. Same thing with all these other different drafts. Now when it comes to a situation where people are being burnt out and folks are getting killed and there's real life issues going on, all these celebrities and politicians and people that were doing it for fun, or let's stay home together, or we're alone together, or quarantine, or COVID-19 and this and that, where are they now? What's up, Ro King? Appreciate you. This is 2 times in a week. I appreciate you, buddy. But like I said, where's the leadership? Where's the unity, man? Because listen, I'm not gonna be hating no white folks. I'm not gonna be hating no police because because of what happened. It's unfortunate what happened. That the officer shouldn't have did what he did. Condolences to the family. And also there was an officer killed in Utah. Somebody brought that to my attention. There was an officer killed in Utah because of a domestic violence dispute. And you got hurt up or killed in some kind of way. Condolences to that family. I think, Mel, it's about justice until that officer is brought to account. Some communities will not listen. However, celebrities are not speaking out to calm the anger and the frustration. Yes, listen, I don't care who you are. If you have any platform, if you have any voice, if you have any influence, and you can move people in a positive way, speak up. Speak up, because there's people that need to hear from you. Now, if that's not your thing, like I said, okay, fine. If you don't know what to say, if you don't know what to do, if you don't have anything good to say, then be quiet. But at the same time, there's a lot of people that want to sell product. There's a lot of people that want you to subscribe and like and watch and see what they're doing. But at the same time, If you can ask me to patronize you when it comes to something that's not important, what happens to when it is important? What happens to when people's lives are on the line? People are really dying. Things are really happening. If you could say or do anything that's going to inspire people to actually say, you know what, let's come together, let's be one, let's do something, let's say, you know what, let's try to squash a lot of this negativity, then it's what it is. Yeah, they have a mouth and they can they can speak. Yeah, like I said, if politics is not your thing, fine. All you do is call for unity. And I'm talking about to the people that know how, to the people that are trained, to the people that are media savvy, to the people out there who have the voice, to the people out there who can be political, for the people out there who can fight for social justice, for the people out there who just have a voice and people are willing to listen to you and hear what you have to say. It doesn't have to be complicated. You could do something just as simple as what I'm doing. Like I said, my voice is not as loud, it's not as big as a lot of other people, but I know it's important for me to say something. I know a lot of people may not want to hear this. There's people on different sides. Maybe they think I'm flip-flopping, I'm doing all lives matter thing. I don't know. But my thing is this. Why sit there and not get involved? Yeah, you pray for justice. You definitely pray for justice, but you got to speak up and you got to say something when it comes to that. And it's just a situation where, you know what, you want to try to be together. You want to try to be united, because it's like the old saying goes, united we stand, divided we fall. A house divided against itself can't stand. There's different ways of saying that, biblical, Abraham Lincoln, whatever you want to say. But the point is, as a country, we're not going to go anywhere if we don't stick together. Things are not going to change if we make it a white or black issue. I'm telling you. You can mark my words. If this is made a white or black issue, if this is made, black folks versus the police, black versus white, or this community versus that community, then all of this is going to be the division. This will be forgotten. I guarantee you. If this becomes a white or black issue, it will become forgotten. Yes, Cheryl. Look at Rodney King. Look at the LA riots. Look at it being one faction versus the other. It will be forgotten if you just make it about just the divisions in certain communities. It's one side versus that side, and then it's over and we're done, and that's the end of it. But it's like somebody said in the chat, there's the babies, there's the kids. The kids are watching us. They're looking and seeing what we do. The adults, the people that want to be respected, the people that want to be honored, the people that want to uphold certain values that we say that we stand for, as a society, as people, as humanity, as Americans. We say we uphold, the right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. We're the land of the free and the home of the brave and all that stuff. Cool. If that's the case, now's the time to be brave. Now's the time to pursue this happiness. Now's the time to say, hey, you know what? Maybe we can look at this in a different way. It's crazy. Yeah, it'll be definitely, it'll be forgotten again, Cheryl, until it happens again. I guarantee you, if we make this a race issue, it will be forgotten until it happens again. How long until, it's instead of it being a black person, it's a white person, or it being an immigrant or something, a Hispanic person, and the thing that I hate, and I have to say this, is that I hate this with a passion. I hate when something happens with a black person, and they die and it happens or whatever, and then we look at it when it happens with a white person and we say, oh, well, that's good for them, or they're experiencing what we finally experienced. And that's wrong. That's wrong. If that was a white person, they say, well, what if it was a white person then? It happened to a white person, then it's still wrong. If it was an Asian person, it's still wrong. If it's any indigenous people, it's still wrong. Hispanic, it's still wrong. Regardless of who was on that floor, regardless of who had that knee to the neck, it would still be wrong, because it's a human being and another human being shouldn't be in that situation, especially you're unarmed, especially you're not a threat to society, regardless of what you thought it was. Forget what you thought it was. It was wrong to take another human being's life because of your suspicion, because you judged them. It was wrong. So it's kind of crazy. So guys, yeah, no, but it's all good, Cheryl. I was just thinking about it. I'm glad you came by to listen to what I'm saying. Because I said we as people, we're human beings. Like I said, black is beautiful. I love being black. I'm glad I'm a black person in America, but I'm also a human being, an American citizen, all those different things. I don't want to see something happen to other people because of the ignorance that's being portrayed by ignorant people that's being shown by the media. Because I'm even watching now here on CNN, they're showing all the division. They're showing the cops. They're showing the cops ready at the ready. What do they want to see the cops for? So, what are you doing? You're showing pictures of George Floyd. You're showing pictures of the cops. You're showing pictures of things being destroyed. You're putting things out there to say what, you know, we want to, we want to keep the division going. For what? For what? I mean, we don't have to keep the division going. Somebody got to say something. We don't have to have this situation where folks are going at each other instead of looking at the real issue. The real issue is that there's injustice, in our system of law. If we want to talk about it, because I've been somebody that's been in the courts many times, it's about our legal system and how we're trained, how the police officers are trained to deal with people in these different communities. They get trained to deal with people in certain ways. They get trained that if you're in an affluent community, in a gated community, you deal with them differently in a gated community than you do in a poor, low income, high crime area. So let's not act like these are not problems. Let's not act like these are not situations where people, have these systemic issues. These are things that are built into our system. And if we all sat down at the table, old, young, gay, straight, religious, atheist, whatever, white, black, Asian, and you sit down and you begin to look at each other as human beings and see each other as for the commonality, then you begin to see it as something. But right now, I'm looking at the media. There's a reporter standing there and she's behind the protesters and there's no solutions being given. You're giving a play-by-play of what's happening, but you're not talking about anything being done to quench the situation. I'm a little bit mad at the media myself because you're showing situations where you have the National Guard and the cops at the ready. Why are you showing this? What is the whole thing in that? Now it's on Twitter, it's on Facebook, it's on YouTube. There's a bunch of media coverage and stuff like that. They're showing fires and stuff like that being lit. What is this? What is it? What's coming of this? It's just violence begetting violence. People setting fires and doing stupid stuff. Where's the leadership? Where's the guidance? Where are the role models? Where are the people to speak up? It's kind of crazy. It's a human issue. Yeah, the media loves to keep people riled up. For what? It's sad, because these are young people out there. This is our future. These are our future leaders. These are our future doctors. These are our future lawyers. These are people that we love. These are family members. This is stuff that's being exploited right now. This is a human issue. I don't, like I said, if I was the media, I wouldn't give this so much coverage. So it's crazy. It's crazy. I mean, nothing is going to change if we keep showing the division. I mean, where are the solutions? Where are the people that are actually trying to fix something? Because I'm looking at it, and I didn't realize it. I'm looking at it. It's a lot of people in the loop. It's a lot of young people out there, exactly, Cheryl. And they're just showing the same thing in the same loop. They're showing people breaking into stuff. They're depicting people in a certain way. They're creating stereotypes. This is how you create stereotypes. This is how you keep things going. And it shouldn't be a situation like this. But unfortunately, because we don't see the humanity in each other, it's easy for us to create these divisions. It's easier for us to dehumanize people, to desensitize ourselves to these situations and say, hey, you know what? That's just another black person over there died, and maybe that person had a criminal record, and maybe they should have got it, and maybe that's just the way it was. But if people don't start speaking up and stepping up, then things just get worse. The more division comes. And the young people need to understand that the things that they're doing out there to make the situation worse, this is being seen by the youth. Is this the example that we want to set for tomorrow? All this stuff is being documented for the world to see. Is this what we want to present ourselves as Americans? And in the midst of this, like I said, I say again, people need to understand there's a global pandemic going on. It was already predicted that millions of people was going to die. Millions. Now you start saying to yourself, wow, because of stuff like this, maybe that's true. Maybe millions of people will die because nobody's thinking about coronavirus. All of a sudden we started forgetting about us being alone together, us being in it together, stay at home and slow the spread. If anything, it seems like the spread of ignorance. It seems like the spread of stupidity. It seems like the spread of division, of violence. Things that people may not want to hear. You may not want to hear me talk about this now. But even if you want to hear me or not, this is not going away. And ask yourself, when you're out there doing it, where are your leaders? Where are the people that you look up to? Where are the people that you hail as heroes? Where are our heroes now? Where are the people that are responsible? Where are the voices? Where are the voices of reason? Where are the people with platforms? Where are the leadership? Where's the people that really care? Because we need them right now. We need people that care right now. This is not the time to be divided. Regardless of how you feel, regardless of what side you stand on, this issue, we need people that care. We need people to say, hey, you know what? I appreciate you as a human being. I need to see you um, for who you are, and I need to see what's going on. Um, the politicians that are speaking up and telling people to go home, some of them, y'all don't get it. Some people don't get it. Now's not the time to talk down to people. Now's not the time to talk at people. Now's not the time to judge people. Now's the time to actually see the commonalities, to see the issues, and start to pay attention. If you ask me personally, I think a lot of this stuff is happening because people are not listening to each other. Sometimes we're just speaking past each other. Sometimes we're just speaking at each other. We're not looking at the concerns because on a granular level, on a smaller scale, people are frustrated. People are in pain. People are hurt. People are angry. People are sad. Folks are tired of crying. People are tired of just injustices. And it's not just black people, it's white people, it's Asian people, Hispanics, indigenous people, people of all walks of life, folks, Samoans, people that you wouldn't even think of that face these issues on a regular basis. Because we have a system of law, we have a system of governance that needs to be changed. This is a systemic problem that affects everybody. If you took all the black people out of the country, would you trust the police then? You know, like I said, if you took all the black people and send them back to Africa, would it be safe then? Would you still not have injustices inside of the law? It's a situation that's wrong. It's bad. It's tragic. But this is what happens if people are not understanding why issues like these recycle and keep happening and keep happening. It's because we fail to see the human issue. We fail to see the broader picture, the rainbow, the spectrum, that this affects so many aspects of life. That if something happens in Minnesota, it does affect people in New York. It does affect people in Atlanta. It does affect people in California. Hell, it affects people overseas, because you can't tell me people overseas in different countries in Europe, in different countries in Africa, the continent of Africa and Asia don't face it. Look at the human rights abuses that are going on in China. We talk about us and the police. There's Chinese authorities out there assassinating Chinese people, but we don't talk about that. We forget. We don't think about that stuff. We don't think about the stigmatism that faces the Asian community when they come here, because they already deal with an authoritarian communist society that exists in their own country. We're just one level of it. So yeah, we're the human race. The last thing we need is to be divided. But guess what? Divided we fall. United we stand. You have to ask yourself the question, if you care, who profits from division? Who profits from us looking at it as a white or black thing? Who stands to gain from this? And the media is guilty as well, because like I said, this is not something that has to be played in a loop constantly over and over and over. Where are the town hall meetings? You know what I'm saying? Where are the people speaking out? Just remember that the police officer had a choice. His action has affected everyone. Police are the risk. The action of unstable police officer that they hired under the radar. Yes, that's true. But the thing with that, which is important to understand, it's a systemic problem because it's a lack of checks and balances, a lack of concern, people you put in there just because you want to meet a quota. And maybe that's just what it is. It's not a real vetting process. And I say that to anybody that's hiring folks on any job, especially law enforcement. You want to have a better vetting process. Maybe you need better sensitivity trainings. Maybe you need more community outreach. Maybe it's something that you really need to have input from the community from. And I think not just the black community, but all communities, because there's not just white police officers out there. There are black police officers. There's Asian police officers. There's Samoan police officers. There's all types of people who work in the police force. And I say to anybody out there who is a police officer, and if you're outraged or you feel some type of way, you should speak up too. We need to hear from more police officers. We need to hear from more good cops out there. If there's good cops out there, people that don't like what happened, speak up. Maybe now is the time to let people know how you feel. Because I'll tell you this, if you want change to come, if you want sweeping change to come, some of these police officers, benevolent unions and unions from different precincts around the country need to speak up. A lot of police officers can change things themselves. When people feel like they don't have a voice, or you got to keep quiet, or you can't cross the blue line, or you can't say what needs to be said, you're wrong. You're totally wrong. There's a lot of people that can say stuff. There's a lot of people that actually have a voice, which are within the system, but some people have to be willing to make sacrifices and speak up and say the things that need to be said. And unfortunately, these things don't get said because, like Cheryl said, people are afraid. Maybe they don't want to speak up. You're in fear of putting things on the line. But for everybody that doesn't speak up, that has a voice, that can affect change, that can do something positive, that's one situation where you a life you could have saved that may be lost. Maybe this reaches somebody, maybe somebody gets what I'm saying, and it impacts one person. It saves one life. You don't know. Then it was worth it. But my thing is to sit there and act like as human beings we don't have problems with the justice system. Think about what's happening. This situation happened to George Floyd, but it was an issue that happened with a systemic racism, bigotry, and inadequacies that exist within the justice system. The law enforcement is a part of the justice system, which governs and polices all Americans, which is an issue that affects all people, all walks of life around the world. This issue is so big that it touches the planet, it touches the globe. You know, dealings with the police, with authorities. People have, PTSD dealing with authorities. People have all kind of stigmas. This is not an isolated incident that just deals with one race and how they deal with the police. Yes, we have a systemic history with slavery, with civil rights, with racism that exists in this country. I'm not ignoring it. I'm not downplaying it. But what I want people to understand within the Black community is that this is not just about us, even though it feels like it's just about us. Right now, as we speaking, there's probably somebody who's white. There's probably somebody who's Hispanic who's going through it. There's somebody who's afraid of INS, or immigration services. There are people who are coming from other countries that are worried about dealings with the police because of what happened back in their homeland. This is not just an isolated incident. But here's what happens through the media, through the politics, through the divisions that come. They like to keep people separated. They like to keep people apart because it's easy to control folks that way. It's easy to keep people in the dark. It's easy to do whatever it is that you feel like you want to do because who's paying attention? Who's connecting the dots? Who's looking at what the media is doing? Who's looking at what the politicians are doing? Who's looking at what the folks that should be speaking up are not doing? Who's taking the time out to see all the people that profit off of the division, off of the violence, off the negativity? Who's taking the time out to look at these things? And this is not a conspiracy theory, but also all conspiracies are not theory. So what I say is it's a bigger issue. It's a bigger issue than people think. But like I said, when we boil it down to just being white versus black, the cops or the authorities versus the people, then we don't get anything done. Because here's the thing. We need the white. We need the black. We need the brown. We need the Asian. We need the police. We need the politicians. We need the influencers. We need the celebrities. We need the people with a voice. We need everybody, to solve these problems that face our communities, even being communities of color, even being communities that many of you may never visit. We need everybody to sit down and come up with solutions. No idea is too silly. No idea is too out of the way. If you have something that may save a life, speak up. If you don't want to say anything to bring unity together, maybe you can present an idea to your local politician. Maybe you can write to your parliament, to your Congress, to your ministry of justice or defense or whatever it is. Write to your people. Let them know how you feel. Let them know where you're coming from. Use your vote. Use your voice. Do it the way you can, because many times people feel like they're ineffective and there's nothing they can do. Even myself, there's things that I can do. There's things that I can do in my very little way, in my limited scope, to help a situation, whatever that is. And it's not just me live streaming, because believe me, there's things that I have to go do after this live stream is over. There's letters that I have to write, calls that I probably have to make, things that I can say, people that I can speak to, things that I can do, conversations that need to be had. Because when you feel like you have no power, that's when you usually give it away. When you feel like you have no voice, that's when you don't have a voice. When you feel like there's nothing you can do, you've given up or forfeited your ability to be able to change or do anything significant in a situation. And I'm going on along with this because, like I said, I need people to understand these are lives that are at stake. These are lives. These are people that may be in your family. These are people that you may know, people that you work with, people that you may date, people that you may have kids with, people that may serve you, as you go into lunch, people that you may see on your way to work, people that are in your community. All folks are part of a community. These black folks are part of the community, the broader community. So it's a big deal because, you know, just like one day it may be that black person on the ground and maybe that black person getting choked out. But what happens when it is a white folk? What happens when it is somebody Asian? What happens when it is somebody Hispanic? You know, it becomes a real granular thing then. This can happen to any one of us. And I appreciate folks taking the time out to hear me speak, to hear what I have to say. Like I said, sorry if I got long-winded, but this is a big topic. This is a big issue. This is something that's not just okay. You give it 5, 10 minutes and you keep it moving. This is not something that I want you to just pass by. This is something I want you to think about. This is something I want you to think about how you can be effective, how you can help your community. To think about how we need to come together. And it's not just dismissing the situation as if there's nothing more to it than just the issue of race. And it's sad, it is tragic, but it is not the end of it. We do have a way forward. We can come together. We can find solutions, but we have to be willing to go there together. And I hope and pray that in the coming days and the months that we can find our way to get into where we need to be, not just as a country, but, as a society, as a global society, that we find ourselves in a way where we come out of this, because we still have to deal with the global pandemic. We still have to see if we could get out of this situation alive without more people getting sick, without more people, dying, tragically. There's the aftermath of this thing, because people are worried about what's happening right now. I guarantee you the aftermath is going to be so much more after this whole situation is going on. And, I know we can do it, but we got to put in the work. We definitely got to put in the work. And I don't want to get too long-winded on this, but definitely thank you for listening. Be safe out there, folks. Stay safe, stay healthy, take care of yourselves. God bless. Yeah, man. Got to work together, man. There's a lot going on that people don't understand.